A manufacturer of jam has 720 kilograms of strawberry syrup and 800 kilograms of mango syrup for making two types of jam. Grade A, 60% strawberry and 40% mango. Grade B, 30% strawberry and 70% mango. The jam is sold in 400 grams jars. The selling price are as follows. Grade A is 48 shillings per jar. Grade B is 30 shillings per jar. A. Form inequalities to represent the given information. B1. On the grid provided, draw the inequalities. B2. From your graph, determine the number of jars of each grade the manufacturer should produce to maximize his profit. B3. Calculate the total amount of money realized if all jars were sold. A school has to take 384 people for a tour. There are two types of buses available, type X and type Y. Type X can carry 64 passengers and type Y can carry 48 passengers. They have to use at least 7 buses. A. Form all inequalities which will represent the above information. B. On the grid provided, draw the inequalities and shade the unwanted region. C. The charges for hiring the buses are type X is equals to 25,000 shillings and type Y is equals to 20,000 shillings. Use your graph to determine the number of buses of each type that should be hired to minimize the cost. An institute offers two types of courses, technical course and business courses. The institute has a capacity of 500 students. There must be more business students than technical students, but at least 200 students must take technical course. Let X represent the number of technical students and Y the number of business students. A. Write down 3 inequalities that describe the given conditions. B. On the grid provided, draw the 3 inequalities. C. If the institute makes a profit of 2,500 shillings to train one technical student and 1,000 shillings to train one business student, determine 1. The number of students that must be enrolled in each course to maximize the profit. 2. The maximum profit. A draper is required to supply 2 types of shirts, type A and type B. The total number of shirts must not be more than 400. He has to supply more of A than type B. However, the number of type A shirts must not be more than 300 and the number of type B shirts must not be less than 80. Let X be the number of type A shirts and Y be the number of type B shirts. Write down in terms of X and Y all the linear inequalities representing the information above. B. On the grid provided, draw the inequalities and shade the unwanted region. C. The profits were as follows. Type A, 600 shillings. Type B, 400 shillings per shirt. Use the graph to determine the number of shirts of each type that should be made to maximize the profit. Calculate the maximum possible profit. A theater has a seating capacity of 250 people. The charges are 100 shillings for an ordinary seat and 160 shillings for special seat. It costs 16,000 shillings to stage a show and the theater must make a profit. There are never more than 200 ordinary seats, and for a show to take place, at least 50 ordinary seats must be occupied. The number of special seats is always less than twice the number of ordinary seats. A. Taking X to be the number of ordinary seats and Y the number of special seats. Write down all inequalities representing the above information. B. On the grid, draw a graph to show the inequalities in A above. C. Determine the number of seats of each type that should be booked in order to maximize the profit. Both juice company has two types of machines, A and B for juice production. Type A machine can produce 800 liters per day, while Type B machine produces 1,600 liters per day. Type A machine needs 4 operators and Type B machines needs 7 operators. At least 8,000 liters must be produced daily, and the total number of operators should not exceed 41. There should be 2 or more machines of each type, letting X be the number of machines of type A and Y the number of machines of type B. A. Form all inequalities in X and Y to represent the above information. B. On the grid, draw the inequalities and shade the unwanted regions. C. Use the graph in B to determine the least number of operators required to maximize possible production. Omondi makes 2 types of shoes, A and B. He takes 3 hours to make 1 pair of type A and 4 hours to make 1 pair of type B. He works for a maximum of 120 hours to make X pairs of type A and Y pairs of type B. It costs him 400 shillings to make a pair of type A and 150 shillings to make a pair of type B. His total cost does not exceed 9,000 shillings. He must make 8 pairs of type A and more than 12 pairs of type B. A. Write down 4 inequalities representing the above information. B. On the grid, draw the inequalities and shade the unwanted regions. C. Omondi makes a profit of 40 shillings on each pair of type A and 70 shillings on each pair of type B shoes. Use the graph provided to determine the maximum possible profit he makes. A diet expert makes up a food product for sale by mixing 2 ingredients N and S. 1 kilogram of N contains 25 units of protein and 30 units of vitamins. 1 kilogram of S contains 50 units of protein and 45 units of vitamins. The food is sold in small bags, each containing at least 175 units of protein and at least 180 units of vitamins. The mass of food product in each bag must not exceed 6 kg. If one bag of the mixture contains X kilogram of N and Y kilogram of S. Write down all the inequalities in terms of X and Y representing the information above. B. On the grid, draw the inequalities by shading the unwanted regions. C. If 1 kilogram of N costs 20 shillings and 1 kilogram of S costs 50 shillings, use the graph to determine the lowest cost of one bag of the mixture. Mwanjoki Flying Company operates a flying service. It has 2 types of aeroplanes. The smaller one uses 180 liters of fuel per hour, while the bigger one uses 300 liters per hour. The fuel available per week is 18,000 liters. The company is allowed 80 flying hours per week. To keep the aeroplane in good condition, the bigger aeroplane must be flown for X hours a week, while the smaller aeroplane must be flown for Y hours per week. Write down all the inequalities representing the above information. On the grid provided, draw all inequalities in A above by shading the unwanted regions. See, the profit on the smaller aeroplane is 4,000 shillings per hour, while that on the bigger one is 6,000 shillings per hour. Use the graph drawn in B above to determine the maximum profit that the company made per week. A company is considering installing 2 types of machines, A and B. The information about each type of machine is given in the table below. The company decided to install X machines of type A and Y machines of type B. Write down the inequalities that express the following conditions. 1. The number of operators available is 40. 2. The floor space available is 80 meters square. 3. The company is to install not less than 3 of type A machines. 4. The number of type B machines must be more than 1/3 the number of type A machines. B. On the grid, draw the inequalities in part A above and shade the unbounded region. C. Draw a such line and use it to determine the number of machines of each type that should be installed to maximize the daily profit. A carpenter takes 4 hours to make a stool and 6 hours to make a chair. It takes the carpenter at least 144 hours to make X stools and Y chairs. The labor cost of making a stool is 100 shillings and that of a chair is 200 shillings. The total labor cost should not exceed 4,800 shillings. The carpenter must make at least 16 stools and more than 10 chairs. A. Write down inequalities to represent the above information. B. Draw the inequalities in A above on the grid. C. The carpenter makes a profit of 40 shillings on a stool and 100 shillings on a chair. Use the graph to determine the maximum profit the carpenter can make. A building contractor has two lorries P and Q used to transport at least 42 tons of sand to a building site. Lorry P carries 4 tons of sand per trip, while Lorry Q carries 6 tons of sand per trip. Lorry P uses 2 liters of fuel per trip, while Lorry Q uses 4 liters of fuel per trip. The lorries are to use less than 32 liters of fuel. The number of trips made by Lorry P should be less than 3 times the number of trips made by Lorry Q. Lorry P should make more than 4 trips. Taking X to represent the number of trips made by Lorry P and Y to represent the number of trips made by Lorry Q, write the inequalities that represent the above information. On the grid provided, draw the inequalities and shade the unwanted region. Use the graph in P above to determine the number of trips made by Lorry P and by Lorry Q to deliver the greatest amount of sand. The dimensions of a rectangular floor of a proposed building are such that the length is greater than the width, but at most twice as the width. The sum of the width and the length is more than 8 meters but less than 20 meters. If X represents the width and Y the length, write inequalities to represent the above information. Represent the inequalities in part A above on the grid. Using the integral values of X and Y, find the maximum possible area of the floor. A trader stocks 2 brands of rice, A and B. The rice is packed in packets of the same size. The trader intends to order fresh supplies, but his store can accommodate a maximum of 500 packets. He orders as twice as many packets of A as of B. He requires at least 50 packets of B and more than 250 packets of A. If he orders X packets of A and Y packets of B, write the inequalities in terms of X and Y to satisfy the above information. On the grid, represent the inequalities in part A above. The trader makes a profit of 5 shillings on a packet of type A rice and 8 shillings on a packet of type B rice. Determine the maximum profit the trader can make. A hotel buys beef and mutton daily. The amount of beef bought must be at least 30 kg and that of mutton at least 20 kg. The total mass of beef and mutton bought should not exceed 100 kg. The beef is bought at 360 shillings per kilogram and the mutton at 480 shillings per kilogram. The amount of money spent on both beef and mutton should not exceed 43,200 shillings per day. Let X represent the number of kilograms of beef and Y the number of kilograms of mutton. A. Write the inequalities that represent the above information. B. On the grid, draw the inequalities in A above. C. The hotel makes a profit of 50 shillings on each kilogram of beef and 60 shillings on each kilogram of mutton. Determine the maximum profit the hotel can make. A workshop makes cupboards and tables using two artisans A and B. Every cupboard made requires 3 days of work by artisan A and 2 days of work by artisan B. Every table made requires 2 days of work by artisan A and 2 days of work by artisan B. In 1 month, artisan A worked for less than 24 days, while artisan B worked for not more than 18 days. The workshop made X cupboards and Y tables that month. A. Write down all the inequalities which must be satisfied by X and Y. B. Represent the inequalities in A on the grid. C. The workshop makes a profit of 6,000 shillings on each cupboard and 4,000 shillings on each table. Find the number of cupboards and the number of tables that must be made for maximum profit and hence determine the maximum profit. A road conductor has to transport 240 tons of hardcore. He will use two types of lorries, type A and type B. He has 3 type A lorries and 2 type B lorries. The capacity of each type A lorry is 8 tons, while that of type B is 15 tons. All type A lorries must each make the same number of trips. Similarly, all type B lorries trips should be less than twice those made by each type A lorry. Each type A lorry must not make more than 6 trips. Take X to be the number of trips made by each type A lorry and Y to represent the number of trips made by type B lorries. Drop the inequalities to represent the above information. On the grid, draw all inequalities and shade the unwanted regions. Take 1 centimeter to represent 1 unit on each of the axes. C. The cost of operating each type A lorry is 5,000 shillings per trip, while that of operating each type B lorry is 12,500 shillings per trip. Determine the number of trips each of the lorry should make in order to minimize the cost of transporting the hardcore. Hence, calculate the minimum cost. In an inter-school mathematics contest, schools can register teams in junior and senior categories. Information on the number of students and the participation fee per term in each category is given in the table below. The organizing committee projected to register X junior teams and Y senior teams. For the contest to take place, the following condition must be satisfied. At least 2 junior teams must be registered. The number of senior teams must be more than half the number of junior teams. The total number of participating students from the 2 categories must not exceed 48. An express train operates between 2 towns. The train pulls X coaches on first class and Y coaches on economy class. Each first class coach can hold 72 passengers, while each economy class can hold 120 passengers. A. Write down the inequalities that express the following conditions for a trip made by the train where the 1. Total number of coaches used was less than 10. 2. The train was pulling at least one first-class coach. 3. The number of economy class coaches was more than the number of first-class coaches. 4. The total number of passengers exceeded 316. B. Represent the inequalities in A on the grid. C. The coaches for the trip were all fully booked. Each first-class ticket cost 3,000 shillings, while economy class ticket cost 1,000 shillings. Determine the maximum possible amount raised from each sale of tickets for the trip.